A cosmetics product agent who was kidnapped at a home in Tumpat, Kelantan on 13th September has been safely rescued and brought home yesterday. Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Akril Sani Abdullah Sani said the victim was rescued with the assistance and sharing of information between the Royal Malaysian Police (PDRM) and the Royal Thai Police, who managed to detect the presence of the victim in their country. In a statement released last night, he said PDRM thanked their Thai counterparts and the Malaysian embassy in the country for their assistance and aid in efforts to rescue the victim. According to him, 7 local men were detained around Kelantan, Selangor and Kuala Lumpur to facilitate investigations into the case and are being investigated under Section 3, Subsection 1 of the Kidnapping Act 1961. Tan Sri Akril Sani said a vehicle believed to be used to kidnap the victim was also seized. During the 13th September incident, a 36-year-old woman was kidnapped by several men from her home in Kampung Semat Jal, Tumpat, at around 5:10 p.m. The victim was suspected to have been smuggled out of the country through an illegal jetty in Kuala Jambu, Tumpat, after the car used by the suspects was located. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob arrived back in Malaysia last night after completing his working visits to New York and Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. The plane carrying the Prime Minister and his delegation arrived at the Bunga Raya Complex, Kuala Lumpur International Airport, KLIA, at about 10:30 p.m. The Prime Minister spent 4 days each in New York and the UAE. He was welcomed by hundreds present at KLIA who lauded him for his historic speech in the national language at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Among those present were the staff of the Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka, along with representatives of the Malaysian National Writers Association. At the UNGA, which brought together more than 150 world leaders, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri delivered the national statement entirely in Bahasa Melayu, the first time a Malaysian leader had done so at the world's largest diplomatic gathering. He also touched on various international issues, including conflicts in Ukraine, Myanmar and Palestine, as well as food security and climate change. On another matter, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri has given his assurance that the government will do its very best to resolve the issue of human trafficking involving Malaysians in several ASEAN countries. The Prime Minister said he had received several TikTok videos on the cases and had referred them to Foreign Minister Datuk Sri Saifuddin Abdullah and Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Akril Sani Abdullah Sani for further action. In a Facebook post, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri said the government is serious about resolving this issue and the matter was discussed in the cabinet meeting last month. He said the Foreign Ministry and the Home Ministry have been instructed to take immediate and aggressive action. The Prime Minister also uploaded a screenshot of Malaysia International Humanitarian Organisation Secretary General Datuk Hishamuddin Hashim's TikTok video in which he had urged the government to take immediate action on the matter. In the video, Datuk Hishamuddin called on the government to help Malaysian embassies, especially in Laos, Cambodia and Myanmar, in their effort to rescue Malaysians who are still being held captive by human trafficking syndicates. He also urged the government to approve special allocations to 3 embassies to help manage logistics and staff, including ensuring sufficient manpower, as diplomatic staff there had been working round the clock to track down stranded Malaysians. The Defence Ministry is restructuring the National Veterans Council so that it is more realistic and focused, especially in facing the current needs and issues of Malaysian Armed Forces veterans. The restructuring also considered the needs of all tertiary stakeholders, such as other ministries and state governments in the council, so that decisions made could have a proper impact and effect for ATM veterans. Senior Defence Minister Datuk Sri Hishamuddin Tun Hussein said efforts to assist veterans not only took place at the ministry level but was implemented holistically with the close support of other ministries such as the Health Ministry and the Housing and Local Government Ministry.
Dalam kita nak melihat agenda veteran yang begitu besar, di mana ahlinya 300,000 yang merangkumi veteran ATM berpencen lebih 100,000. Veteran ATM tidak berpencen hampir 80,000. Yang berada di bawah pencen terbitan hampir 30,000. Persatuan veteran saja beratus. Persatuan veteran di peringkat induk 121, manakala di peringkat cawangan ada 381. Ini jumlah yang terpaksa kita fikirkan secara menyeluruh bila nak membela kedudukan veteran-veteran kita.
On veterans' demands to improve allowances for Pingat Jasa Malaysia PJM award recipients, increase in living cost assistance for B40 veterans and pension adjustments, the minister said the matter has been brought to the Finance Ministry and the Public Service Department for approval. He said the matter involved a significant financial implication and required the consideration of other ministries and agencies. Communications and Multimedia Ministry, KKMM, through the National Film Development Corporation Malaysia, FINAS, always welcomes foreign production houses to run filming in Malaysia. Its Deputy Minister, Dato' Zahidi Zainul Abidin, said Malaysia's film production incentive is able to attract investment in film and television production, in addition to developing a sustainable ecosystem in the local market.
Iaitu filem tempat. Jadi ini satu yang cukup membanggakan kita, di mana FINAS melalui program FIMI-nya telah pun terlibat dalam 82 filem antarabangsa dan 80 filem tempatan. Jadi kita lihat ini adalah usaha KECOM dengan FINAS mempromosikan filem-filem tempatan untuk dan juga yang bekerjasama dengan luar negara.
Dato' Zahidi said this after attending the premiere of local horror film Don't Look at the Demon. The film, which was filmed with a budget of nearly 9 million ringgit, is set to debut this October 6th in cinemas nationwide and over 250 cinemas in North America on 7th October, making it the first Malaysian movie to enter the North American market. Based on true events, Don't Look at the Demon follows the story of a group of American paranormal investigators who travelled to Fraser's Hill in Pahang to investigate supernatural occurrences in a house that was built in the 1970s. The Shah Alam City Council MBSA has refuted claims that its mayor, Dato' Zamani Ahmad Mansor, had been arrested by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, for investigation over tenders for projects in the city. It said Dato' Zamani Ahmad Mansor was only called by the MACC last Wednesday to assist in investigations. In a statement, it said the Shah Alam mayor returned to work as usual on Thursday, adding that it would like to emphasize that it's always prepared to extend its cooperation in the investigation by MACC. Recently, the media reported that the MACC had uncovered a cartel believed to be monopolizing project tenders in MBSA following a raid on the local authority's office last Sunday. MACC Chief Commissioner Tan Sri Azam Baki said so far 9 individuals, including several MBSA staff and a senior officer, had been arrested to assist investigations. Coming up in the foreign segment, Thai court to decide suspended Prime Minister's fate. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Myanmar's junta sentenced an Australian economist to 3 years in prison while also handing down another conviction to ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Both have been detained since a coup in February last year when the military ousted Suu Kyi's government, for which Sean Turnell was an advisor. Ternel, Suu Kyi and another 3 were sentenced under the Official Secrets Act. His sentence provoked a swift reaction from Australia, with the Foreign Ministry rejecting his conviction and urging his immediate release. Ternel's wife pleaded for his release, saying his jailing in Myanmar is heartbreaking for his whole family. Havu said Ternel had been one of Myanmar's greatest supporters for more than 20 years, working tirelessly to strengthen its economy. Suu Kyi has already been convicted of corruption and a clutch of other charges by a closed court. A junta spokesman did not respond to a request for comment. The United States also strongly condemned the verdict, calling for Ternel's immediate release and for him to be allowed to return to Australia. Thailand's Constitutional Court is due to deliver its verdict today on a case that seeks to determine whether Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has already exceeded an 8-year limit as Premier. Now, Prayut, who seized power in a 2014 coup before formally becoming Prime Minister soon after, was suspended 5 weeks ago as the court deliberated the case filed by the opposition Pheu Thai party, which argues that he should have left office last month. The court must decide whether the 8 years should include Prayut's time as leader of the junta he installed after toppling the Pheu Thai government. The tenure issue is one of many opposition efforts to remove the retired general, including 4 parliamentary censure motions, a conflict of interest case over his continued use of military residence, and months of protests that challenged his leadership and the monarchy. According to Election Commission, the election is due at the latest by 7th May next year, and today's decision will determine whether Prayut, 68, can seek the premiership again. Should the court decide Prayut reached the 8-year milestone last month, Parliament must pick a new premier from 5 of the losing candidates from the 2019 House vote. Russian President Vladimir Putin called for mistakes in Russia's ongoing military mobilization for the offensive in Ukraine to be corrected as discontent grows over the often chaotic conscription push. Now, Russian media and social networks have reported cases of the mobilization of elderly people, students, the sick or conscripts without military experience. Opposition to the drive has also sparked protests and the flight of thousands of men abroad. Putin, in a press conference, gave the example of fathers of large families, people suffering from serious illnesses or very old people being summoned, despite these groups being exempted legally. He added, if a mistake had been made, it will be corrected, and those who were summoned without an appropriate reason would be allowed to go home. On Monday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov admitted there had been mistakes in the mobilization, which was supposed to focus on 300,000 reservists with military experience or useful skills, such as truck drivers. More than 2,400 people have been detained in demonstrations against the mobilization in Russia since it was announced on 21st September. Many Russians have also chosen to flee the country, causing large queues at the borders of Georgia, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and Finland. US President Joe Biden vowed to never recognize the results of Russian-led referendums in Ukraine, which he called a flagrant violation of international principles. During the meeting between the United States and Pacific Island leaders in Washington, Biden described the referenda as a sham, and the results were manufactured in Moscow.
The United States, I want to be very clear about this, the United States will never recognize Russia's claims on Ukraine's sovereign territory. This so-called referenda was a sham, an absolute sham. The results were manufactured in Moscow.
The Kremlin said that the annexation of 4 parts of Ukraine would be formally announced on Friday, with Putin delivering a speech. Putin has made veiled threats to use nuclear weapons to defend the territories amid Ukrainian gains on the ground against Russia. Secretary of State Antony Blinken earlier called the Kremlin staged votes an affront to international peace. The votes came in areas controlled by Kremlin proxies and follow a playbook in 2014 when Russia took over the Crimean Peninsula. Blinken earlier called the latest votes part of a diabolical scheme, saying that Ukrainian residents were forced out and Russians bussed in, with the results themselves also under question. Meanwhile, at least 5 people were killed and 7 wounded in a Russian strike that hit a bus stop in the southeastern Ukrainian city of Mykolaiv. The Smerch MLRs fired from the temporarily occupied Kherson region hit the middle of a residential area near a public transport stop in Mykolaiv at about 6:30 local time. Mykolaiv Regional Administration Press Officer Dmitro Pletenchuk said the strike was executed on a residential district when a lot of civilians were going home, and the strike was treacherously executed. The ammunition exploded in mid-air, scattering cartridges over a 2-block radius. The repeated bombardment of the city of about 470,000 came as part of an escalated number of missile attacks and shelling across Ukraine, despite Moscow's earlier claims that it would limit its 24th February invasion to the eastern region of the Donbass after its Ukraine-wide assault failed. Emergency crews raced on Thursday to reach stranded Florida residents as Hurricane Ian trained its sights on the Carolinas after cutting a coast-to-coast path of destruction across Florida, leaving behind deadly floodwaters, downed power lines, and widespread damage. Ian, one of the strongest storms ever to hit the U.S. mainland, flooded Gulf Coast communities and knocked out power to millions before plowing across the peninsula to the Atlantic Ocean, where it regained strength ahead of another anticipated landfall in South Carolina on Friday. The death toll remained uncertain amid scattered reports of casualties. More than 2.6 million homes and businesses in Florida remained without power. Governor Ron DeSantis said that Lee and Charlotte counties, home to more than 900,000 people, were basically off the grid. By midday on Thursday, residents in hard-hit areas like Venice hunted for family and friends, while rescue crews worked to reach people trapped in flooded homes. The search for loved ones was made more difficult as cell phone services were often cut. A large fire tore through the headquarters of Paraguay's national electoral body, casting doubts on primaries and general elections scheduled for the coming months. Now, firefighters battled the flames as a huge cloud of smoke came out of the Superior Court of Electoral Justice in the capital of Asuncion, which houses material and machines that will be used in the elections and where hundreds of officials work. There were no immediate reports of any deaths as firefighters continued working to prevent the fire from spreading even further. Asuncion's electoral justice, Jorge Bogarin, said the cause of the fire could not be confirmed yet, but that the incident could eventually alter the schedule that was already drawn up for coming elections. Primaries for presidential candidates are currently scheduled for 18th December, and general elections for president, vice president, governors and congressmen are scheduled for the 30th of April next year. TSJE President Jamie Bastard said in a news conference that the fire may have damaged some 8,500 voting machines and that he would look into holding December's primaries in 2 different stages. President of the opposition Liberal Party, Efrain Alegre, said that breaking up the primaries would be a plan to carry out a fraud. Still to come in sports, Novak Djokovic makes winning return to ATP action. We begin with the local front. The National Sports Council, MSN, will continue to extend to help to develop weightlifting despite the doping issue marring the sport at the recent 20th Malaysia Games or SUKMA. Its Director General, Dato' Ahmad Shapawi Ismail, said the doping issue will not disrupt weightlifting, which is still under consideration to be reinstated as a core sport.
bantuan yang kami berikan pada persatuan angkat berat dan khususnya ke perkembangan sukan angkat berat ada kalanya melebihi pada mereka dalam sukan teras. So saya rasa itu tak ada kena-mengena dengan sukan teras. Yang penting sekarang ni kita kena terus usaha kita untuk mencari bakat-bakat angkat berat ni dalam masa sama memberikan mereka education, pendidikan kenapa doping itu merupakan satu elemen yang sepatutnya tidak lagi menjadi sebagai satu perkara yang sinonim dengan angkat berat.
MSN had taken over the task of organising the weightlifting competition in the 20th SUKMA following the drastic action of PABM to withdraw from the Games because there were 3 doping cases involving the sport. And on to tennis, Novak Djokovic, playing a singles tournament for the first time since winning Wimbledon in July, reached the Tel Aviv quarterfinals on Thursday with a straight sets victory over Spain's Pablo Andujar. Djokovic eased to a 6-love, 6-3 win over his 115th ranked opponent in 86 minutes, firing 30 winners and breaking Andujar 4 times. He was always in control against his Spanish rival, who he has now defeated 3 times, taking control of the match by winning the first 7 games. Former world number 1 Djokovic hasn't played a singles event since capturing a 7th Wimbledon title 10 weeks ago, after his refusal to get vaccinated ruled him out the US Open and the entire American hardcourt swing. His only other appearance had been in the Labour Cup team tournament in London last week. Djokovic, showing no signs of the right wrist trouble which bothered him in London, will face Canada's 149th ranked Vasek Pospisil in Friday's quarterfinals. Meanwhile, ambitious Cameron Norrie powered his way to a dominant 6-2, 6-2 victory over Keiichi Uchida to advance to the quarterfinals of the Korea Open. The 27-year-old Briton has won 2 titles this year, making it into the top 10 for the first time in his career and reaching the semi-finals at Wimbledon. He wasted no time taking down Japan's Uchida, breaking 2 of his serves in each set for a quick victory in 1 hour, 3 minutes. Norrie, the second seed at the Korea Open, will face Jensen Brooksby of the United States in the quarterfinals. World number 2 Casper Ruud also advanced to the quarterfinals by beating Nicolas Jarry of Chile 6-2, 3-6, 6-3. The 23-year-old will face Yoshihito Nishioka of Japan for a semi-final spot.
6-2, 3-6.
At the World Rally Championship, Estonian Ott Tänak took the first stage of the New Zealand Rally on Thursday, with overall championship leader Carl Rovanperä coming in 6th as he bids to seal the title this weekend. Rovanperä of Finland turns 22 on Saturday and can become the youngest winner of the Drivers' Championship if he wins the rally on Sunday or finishes with 8 points more than Tänak. He starts the event 53 points ahead of the Estonian and could wrap up the title with the Spanish and Japanese rallies still to come. Tänak, however, clocked the fastest time of 1 minute 45.8 seconds around the short first stage in Auckland. Rovanperä finished 2.6 seconds back in the first of the weekend's 17 stages, with 2021 overall champion Sebastian Ogier 8th. Max Verstappen could be celebrating more than his 25th birthday at the floodlit Singapore Grand Prix this weekend, as the Dutch driver takes a first shot at securing his 2nd Formula One title. Now, the Red Bull racer, whose birthday is today, is 116 points clear of Ferrari rival Charles Leclerc and at 125 ahead of Mexican teammate Sergio Perez after 16 of this season's 22 races. There are 5 rounds after Singapore, offering a maximum of 138 points. Verstappen needs to score at least 22 points more than Leclerc and 13 more than Perez on Sunday. He has to win, and Leclerc finish lower than 8th for the title to be decided. Verstappen trailed Leclerc by 46 points after the first 3 races of the season, but then ran away with the championship as the Monegasque Challenge imploded. He has won 11 of 16 races, finished off the podium just once, and heads into Singapore, a race he is yet to win and where Red Bull have not triumphed since 2013 on a streak of 5 successive victories. Ferrari were dominant the last time Formula One visited city-state in 2019, with the race absent for 2 seasons due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The race, staged in the heart of the city against a backdrop of glittering skyscrapers, has established itself as one of the sport's most glamorous and popular. A crowd of about 268,000 attended over the whole weekend in 2019, and organisers are expecting a sellout this year. And that ends today's Updates at Noon. Wrapping up with a reminder of our top story today: kidnapped cosmetics agent rescued in Thailand. Now tune in to News at 10, coming up at 10 p.m. on Saluran Berita RTM. We now leave you with aerial images above Fort Myers in southwest Florida, showing the devastation caused by Hurricane Ian. I'm Mohana Priya.